Welcome to the testing and certification portion of VTS. This chapter is an introduction to shop safety. My name is Lance Wiggins, and I'll be your host today. It's a great day to fix transmissions, so let's get started. Some workplace facts. In the United States, a worker is injured on average of every 19 seconds. Most accidents occur within the employee's first 6 months of the new job. A vast amount of injuries in the workplace are due to employees' unsafe acts. Accidents cause personal and family suffering, employee downtime, and lost revenue. This first portion of the shop safety chapter, we're going to talk a little bit about OSHA and the general overall national laws and some of the safety factors that you can look into across the United States. Regarding OSHA, workers are entitled to working conditions that do not pose a risk of serious harm. To help assure a safe and healthful workplace, OSHA also provides workers with the right to ask to inspect their workplace, use their rights under the law without retaliation or discrimination, receive information and training about hazards, get copies of any test results that may have been done in the workplace or area, enable them to review some records and get copies of their medical records with regards to any injuries or accidents that may have happened within the workplace or environment. Who OSHA covers: private sector workers, federal government workers, and who not covered by OSHA, though, however, is self-employed, immediate family members, or farm employees, and the work hazard regulated by other federal agencies. Some of the standards and the protections of the job. Some examples of OSHA standards include requirements to provide fall protection, prevent trenching, cave-ins, prevent some infectious diseases, assure that workers safely enter confined spaces, prevent exposure to harmful substances like asbestos, put guards on machines, provide respirators and other safety equipment, and providing training for certain dangerous jobs. All of these standards are general safety standards that are kind of common sense if you think about it. Using some form of protective respirators when you're dealing with paint. So if you're a painter, you got to have a respirator, otherwise, you're sucking in paint through your lungs there. Some sort of guards, especially for grinders, wearing your safety glasses and having some sort of guard in front of the grinder is an important thing to have. So these things are kind of generally accepted as naturally a natural thought process, like this makes sense. I should have something here to prevent injury. So the majority of the time, if you go into a workplace environment and you see something that doesn't look right, like, hey, here's a grinder that doesn't have a guard on it, probably not supposed to be like that. Should have a guard on it. However, eyewear or any face guards are also something that you should have. OSHA in the workplace. Workers or the representatives may file a complaint and ask OSHA to inspect the workplace if they believe that a serious hazard or their employee is not following OSHA standards. A worker can contact OSHA and not let their employer know who filed the complaint, so it's incognito, if you will. It's a violation of the act for the employer to fire, demote, transfer, discriminate in any way against the worker for filing a complaint using. So essentially, as we're in the work environment, you can bring up these things to your employer, like, hey, we should really have this guard for this chainsaw. We should really have a guard for this table saw. We should really have a guard for this grinder. We should probably have a belt guard for the compressor. These things you can bring up to the employer if they are going to create any kind of hazard to your health. If the employer does not acknowledge the fact that could cause some problems, and you feel as though it's a safety hazard, you can certainly contact OSHA for their assistance. So some employer responsibilities. Employers have the responsibility to provide a safe workplace environment. Employers must provide their employees with a workplace that does not have serious hazards and follow all relevant OSHA safety and health standards. Employers must find and correct safety and health problems. OSHA further requires employers to try to eliminate or reduce hazards first by making changes in the working conditions rather than just relying on masks, gloves, earplugs, or other types of personal protection equipment. Switching to safer chemicals and closing processes to trap harmful fumes or using ventilation systems to clean the air are examples of effective ways to get rid of and or minimize your risks. Some dangerous situations at the workplace. Requirements for small businesses. You should always conduct a safety meeting, identify any hazards that may be located around the shop, establish your safety rules, train employees to make sure that they know what to do just in case this happens, have a written hazard communication plan as per the 29 CFR regulation 1910.1200. This is essentially, this happens and your employees should do this. If we have a hazardous spill, a gasoline spill over the shop floor, pretty significant, 5, 6, 10 gallons of gasoline spills, immediately shut off all electrical devices, immediately make sure all fumes are extinguished, exit the building, make sure you get the proper cleanup equipment. So you have your chem dry, you have your soda ash, there are certain things you're going to need to remove that hazardous waste. Okay. Implement through record keeping and reporting systems to make sure you have all of that stuff recorded and logged for your employees as well as for your insurances. Safety is a habit. Online SPT training, it is the law according to the EPA and OSHA regulations. Everyone involved in heavy-duty fleet, automotive repair, maintenance, as well as automotive insurance claims and so on and so forth, need to make sure that you have a safety best practices handbook written someplace within the shop. Workplace safety training addresses general safety topics. Everyone in the workplace is properly trained. No employees are permitted to do any of the job that appear unsafe. So these are things, in our industry, we don't take a guy off the street and say, "Hey, rack that dually truck on the rack and let's get the tires off of it." Right? We have to make sure that the rack is capable of lifting that type of vehicle. We have to make sure that they're properly trained in order to put the rack cleats or the rack ears in the proper positions. So make sure the supervisors and managers are trained to recognize these hazards and understand their responsibilities and the shop foreman's responsibilities as to what we're going to prevent injury by being properly trained. Okay, stop an unsafe act. Safety must be planned into every job we do and supervised with the same diligence and forethought as the rest of our work. All employees must wear their personal protection equipment, be accountable. This is eyewear, hats, gloves, steel-toed boots, long pants, long sleeve shirts if that's required. Make sure that you have safety guards and you're wearing your safety vest or gloves when you're doing any welding or gas or settling type programs. It's every employee's responsibility to be on the lookout for possible hazards. So if you spot, gasoline or oil-soaked rags sitting next to something flammable or potentially flammable, You want to make sure that you take care of that as soon as possible. If you spot one of these conditions on the following list or any other possible hazardous situations, report it to your supervisor immediately. So we have a list here of things that while you're looking around, something to check off during your safety inspection. These are things that you should probably get fixed or have a plan to get them fixed. So let's talk about types of extinguishers. These are very important to have, and each extinguisher is specific for certain situations. So we'll just kind of review these. So Class A is solids such as paper, wood, cloth, and plastic. Class B, flammable liquids such as paraffin and petrol, which is gasoline, and oils, which is probably more than likely what you're going to see in the shop area. Class C, flammable gases such as propane, butane, and methane. Again, you probably will have a Class C as well. Class D, metals such as aluminum, magnesium, titanium. Electrical, Class E is electrical apparatus fires. That may be something that you might have around. You may have a combination of the B, C, or C and E. And then Class F is cooking fires, such as cooking oils and deep fat fries. So that's something that you probably will see in most restaurants. So here's some safety tips. When leaving the shop, always make sure your vehicle's batteries are disconnected. That's not always the case. I know that we, especially in today's world, our batteries and our electrical systems on our vehicles are much better. But you never know when you have critters coming through, or you have somebody leaves a rag or a fender cover on with a tool on it, and they remove that, or they shut the hood, and your tool arcs with both the positive and negative, and creates a little bit of a light show there. So as a rule of thumb, it's a good idea to do. However, it's something that doesn't always have done. But use a separate battery tender for computer memory if needed. Turn off all space heaters if used, and if possible, turn off the air compressor. Make sure your flammables are stored properly and not near a heat source at all times. This is something you should do every single day. Make sure your welding equipment is stowed correctly, and any other bottles not mounted on a cart have caps on them and are chained to prevent from falling. Fire extinguisher placement, you should have that located in an area that can be easily accessed. You don't want it over the top of a bench or over the top of compressors or behind closed doors. You want it someplace where it's you can easily find it. It's identified easily, next to doors, next to exits, close to your workstation and environment, but not blocked, not hidden, and make sure that it again is easily accessible. So let's take a look at the fire diamond markings. These are important to know with regards to what type of chemicals you have. Also, if you're in a state that requires the fire department to come down and have a look, it gives them a very quick and easy way of identifying what you have located in there. So if it's red, you have it's a fire hazard. Okay, so that's flash points or boiling points below 73 degrees or 100 degrees. If it's yellow, that's reactive. Okay, that's an instability type of chemical. So that could be a shock, or heat may detonate it. A violent chemical change can happen, or unstable if heated. Blue is health hazard, so that's deadly, extreme danger, hazardous, slightly hazardous. And then white is some form of specific hazard, like an oxidizer, or don't use with water. Don't add, glycol to this. You should never store corrosive materials with flammable materials. They could be stored in separate blue corrosive lockers if possible. Fire hazards and preventions, make sure that everything is marked correctly. Here's some examples of some shop safety bins and equipments. Again, they're marked. They're not. What you don't want to have is you don't want to have like in the bottom left hand corner here where it's tucked in behind something. You want that easily accessible. You want the fire extinguisher accessible that you don't have to reach over anything. You can just go to it, grab it. The shop oil rags and or the blankets that you may use and need to be stored again in someplace accessible. So with the shop safety and with our work environment, we're going to talk a little bit about lifts here. And so the Automotive Lift Institute standard for automotive lifts, this is the ANSI ALI 2000. This is something that you can review every single year, download. It's a safety issue. The following documents outline requirements for the automotive lift set forth by the Automotive Lift Institute standard for automotive lifts. This is safety requirements for operation, inspection, and maintenance. So operation of lifts. Listed in your handout here are 9 different things that you're going to want to make sure that we cover. Now, owners and operators must ensure the operators of the automotive lifts are instructed in a safe and use and operation of the lift using the manufactured provided instructions and warning labels. This simply means that I'm not going to put a 10,000-pound vehicle on a 4,000-pound lift. That's what that means. You need to be prepared to lift all different types of vehicles as we do in our industry, but also make sure that each one that you're lifting, you know exactly where the lift points are. Okay. Make sure that you know how to operate the automotive lift only after being properly trained. Operators should use all acceptable applicable safety features provided on the automotive lift and operators manual. And so once you've gone through the process of checking the cables, checking the electricity to the lift, making sure that the ears work correctly, make sure the bolts are on there correctly, make sure the arms are correctly, make sure if you have rubber mounts, that the rubber mounts are there and correct, or not flat and nothing on them. Make sure you know where the frame contacts are. Make sure you know where the unibody contacts are, and that you're trained to operate that lift correctly. Your shop foreman, your shop manager, or your shop owner should be the one to verify that you have the capability of working on that. So every now and then you should have some qualified inspections. So some activities performed during inspections are subject to compliance with established OSHA standards, including but not limited to personal protective equipment, walking and working surfaces, hazardous materials, lockout or tag out, compressed gas and compressed air equipment, machinery and machine guarding. All owners and employers are responsible for ensuring compliance with the requirements of the applicable standards. So these are things that you should do periodically, at least once a year, at minimum, to verify that everything is still in good working order. Repairs should be conducted by qualified service repair technicians only. There are no modifications or reconstructions made to any automotive lift without express written permission of each manufacturer. That is to say that, you want to add an arm onto the lift, or you want to, maybe you got a 4,000 pound lift, but you want to put a 6,000 pound cable on there. These are things that aren't really recommended. You should probably look to invest in a different type of lift. Again, without written permission from the manufacturer, you're illegally doing this. So make sure that you're covering that. On the operator training log, this is just a simple example of that. So if you'd like to use this for your shop, you certainly can. Your daily lift inspection check sheet. Again, this is something that you can go out there every single day and use. After a while, you're probably like, okay, I get it. We're good. But what it does is it gives you a habitual look. Are the procedures readable? Yes. Are the warning labels there? Yes. Are the cables okay? Yes. Is there any wear to the contact points? Is there any evidence of hydraulic or leaks? Is there any noises or sudden movements or erratic jerking? You got one side that goes up and then the next side goes up. Are they off balance? So these are all things that once you go through a couple of times and they kind of become habit, now all of a sudden when you do notice something odd, you're like, I think we should probably do something about that. So your daily check sheet, again, you should make that some form of habit. Your inspection certificate. So again, here's all the inspection points. When you go through this once a year, twice a year, you put it in your log. That way, when the fire department comes or the inspectors come to review your location, you simply have it, pull it out, set it down, and you're off and running. Here's a couple of examples of the locations for unibody and where we're going to install our lifts. Some eye and face protection. These are the guards we spoke about earlier with regarding to using a wire wheel or the grinder wheel. If you don't have a guard on that particular product, you should always have some form of eye or face protection. So here's a little bit of the eye wash and first aid areas. Every single shop should have some form of eye wash or first aid equipment around. The majority of problems that we'll have is gasoline, diesel, transmission fluid, brake clean. Is another good one. I mean, if you work in our industry, you've had it in your eye. That's just kind of how that works. Rust, up in the Northwest, you'll have or Northeast, you'll have a lot of rust. So these are all things that you're going to need. The eye wash is a very important tool to have. It should again be located in some place where you can get to it without having to any hazards involved. So if you look at the picture on the left, you've got a ton of hazards in there. If I'm blind, I can't see what I'm doing, and I've got gasoline in my eye, I'm running over here to get this eye wash. I'm bouncing all over everything, right? So you want to make sure that it's located someplace where I can get to it in a hurry when needed. So last couple of things we're going to talk about here is back disorders, which we have. It's just part of our work environment. But there's ways to protect yourself from any back issues. And so back disorders result from exceeding the capability of the muscles, tensions, tendons, discs, and cumulative effort of serious contributors. Now, stretching every single morning before you start your work is huge. Getting your twists, getting your bends, getting your stretches, those things are very important. Now, I know that we don't do that, and I'm challenging you to do this every single day before you get started. Get your bends, get your twists, get your aerobic activity up a little bit before you get started. Get warmed up. Most of the injuries that happen are in the colder climate times when we're not as active, and so during the summer times when we've worked up a good sweat before we even got into the shop to start working, it's a little easier. So again, be cautious about what you're doing. If you need help, grab help. If you need 2 people, grab 2 people. If you need equipment, grab equipment. Just don't put yourself in harm's way to give yourself an opportunity to hurt yourself. Anytime you're lifting up your boxes, you should always keep that back straight, weight close to the body, and use your legs as your point of emphasis. Again, if you need help, please do so. Grab the other person, have them help you get equipment or whatever you may need to get that heavy object, that transmission, up off the ground and onto the bench. So this is going to conclude our testing and certification portion of VTS. We want to thank you for participating in our virtual training solutions powered by ATRA. Until next time, let's keep fixing transmissions together.